mean, give you a short introduction. I think we all agree that sake's future will look all the more expansive, and not expensive, my French accent, I hope it's clear there, expansive, as it permeates international markets alongside local cuisine. And yesterday we went to France and Spain, with countries with a very strong wine culture. Today we'll be in a different place which is a little bit more neutral when it comes to when it comes to wine. Wherever you are, I think you always have on offer a very wide range of very high quality alcoholic beverages. They can be domestic, they can be imported. And you always have to ask yourself, I mean, there's only one important question. I mean, why should I select or choose sake to pair with the local cuisine? And sometimes the answer is whom you're having dinner with, or the story that you like, or just exoticism, the context. But at the end of the day, there's only one important question, at least for the Epicurean. It's, well, I will choose sake when sake tastes better. And it happens that two individuals formed a team to take the bull by the horns and make it a project. And I'm so happy to welcome two gentlemen in our session. One of them is Wolfgang Anyal, and Wolfgang from Austria is the CEO of Riedel, the glassware company, very famous glassware company. And he's played an instrumental role in developing the Junmai and Daiginjo glasses for Riedel. And we heard again yesterday how glassware was important in the Western world in particular. And the other gentleman is Michael Ho. Michael is a chef. He's the owner of a brilliant izakaya down in Taipei, in Taiwan. He's a sake importer as well. And he's a tireless sake educator. And actually, this year, for all these accomplishments, he was awarded the Sake Samurai title by the Sake Brewers Association Juniors Council. So let's bring them in.
Hello.
Gentlemen, good afternoon.
Hello.
Hello, good afternoon. Hello, hello, Justine. Hello,
Great
everyone.
to see you again.
I mean,
yes.
Indeed, great to see you. I mean, Wolfgang, we thought we had a nice setup here, but you beat us. Such a beautiful place.
Yes. Well,
what is this place?
This is just our shop, one of our shops in Aoyama in Tokyo. And I'm just sitting in the tasting bar where we will do tastings on a daily basis. In fact, I hope the people that have a tasting next door are not going to be too noisy and interfering with our session. So anyway, here we are, and we're really delighted to be part of the Future of Sake Summit.
I mean, I have introduced the subject already, so we will dive into it, and you've prepared amazing visuals and slides as a presentation. So in a way, you made my job extremely easy. I'm going to give you the floor to you, and you managed to build suspense as well. So really looking forward to that. Please share with us your adventure.
Okay, so I share the screen with. Okay, we need to now. Sorry, oops. I'm so sorry. I have to go to the beginning of the screen. We were too overexcited to go through it. All right. I think this is where Michael will start. So Michael, please.
Okay. Hello, everyone. That's the first slide that on the left-hand side will be my izakaya in Taipei. It's a small izakaya, but we already run through like 14 years, lots of sake. I think during the time that we opened the shop that there's not lots of sake put in the fridge. So we are the kind of like very first or second shop that have all the over 30 selection. And now we have 100 sake selection in the shop or in the fridge. And we do a lot of event in Taiwan as well. From the sake event, sakeism, from the first year, only 2,000 per day. And now we have 32,000 for 4 days. So it's kind of the big event that we held every year. And also for the like sake movie as well, everything as well. So that's what I'm doing in Taipei. And also in Shanghai. In Shanghai, we do sake educating, that we have the OU.Sake Institute to start from 3 years ago. And in here, we also do a lot of sake dinner and also educating as well. But the most fun thing is that every month we do a lot of crossover with the wine lover. So it's like the section that the wine teacher will talk about the same section, like fermentation with the wine, and I will talk about the sake fermentation. So it's sort of a lot of crossover held each month in Shanghai, which is a very interesting one. And we keep going for a year. We have all different topics. So to make both sides customer interest in each other's culture. So I think it's really fun and great. So that's me here.
Okay. Okay. Well, for me, the way I came to Japan was in '85 at the World Skills of Olympic competition in Osaka. That's how I came to Japan. I'm originally from the hospitality industry prior to joining Riedel about 30 years ago. So this is what I did before I joined Riedel in the late '80s. And this is the competition that was held then. It was a gastronomic competition between young people. And this is me on the right here with a funny hairstyle. It was already the Empress and the Emperor were already there at that time. So it was a very, quite a big event that not so many people know about. Then I joined Riedel in the early 90s, and it was in the mid 90s when the Japanese realized that the taste of a wine the taste and aroma of wines will change depending on the shape of a glass. We were asked immediately, what about sake? And first we were very reluctant to broach the subject of sake. And after some deliberation, we chose Daiginjo as a variety to aim for. And it took about 2 years and about 20 different brewers we worked very closely together with, but also the Daiginjo Association was involved in creating this glass, which we then introduced almost now over 20 years ago. So this is quite a old glass now. The Junmai glass development, we were asked always also to look at other varieties, and it was in 2010 that we started to investigate the Junmai as a category. And we did, I would say, 42 different preliminary tastings with different professionals. And you can even see a very young John Gantner on the very top left, and John Gantner on the bottom right. They changed quite a bit over 8 years. This is what 8 years do to you. So this is quite an interesting historical snapshot of the 8 years of the Junmai glass development, because it was very, very hard for us to find, to have the industry to agree on a unified flavor profile that we were then fine-tuning and aiming. And we in November 1918, we held then 2 executive workshops in Tokyo together with brewers that independently chose the same shape, number 5, which was then chosen as the perfect glass for Junmai. This was the 2 glasses then as a result, and this is the flavor map that we're using in our communication, because we want to make it very easy for the consumer to understand the 2 main categories, and the 2 main flavor profiles are from the very aged on the very top right to the very highly polished, pure, light body umami light sake and fruity and floral aromatic type of Daiginjo on the left. This is how Michael and I got together after we introduced the Junmai glass. We went to Australia, we went to Hong Kong, but then we went to Shanghai, and we probably did the biggest sake glass tasting so far together. We did a glass tasting, a sake introduction to Michael, and also Michael did a food pairing with caviar and chocolate. So this is the first time when we really got fired up on the subject. and we discussed, and we met in Tokyo again. And maybe we want to stop on this slide a little bit, because this is how we looked at the subject, where we wanted to know what is the better match, not just for sake to go well, not just to be a different expression, not just to find good sake pairings, but it needed to be superior to wine. And we wanted to really identify the flavor components that worked better with sake than wine, and in order to give consumers and professionals a guidance that they're really looking for. So even on the bottom left here, you see a cauliflower soup. We even asked the chef, this was actually, Sebastian, you were there actually.
Yes.
With Corby, Jacques or Jeremy Corby?
Yes, Dominic Corby.
Jacques Corby. And he kindly prepared the same dish, once the same cauliflower soup, once made with cream and once made with soya milk. And this was also a very exciting experience. We did the same with risotto, where we used miso and we used the Parmigiano. And every time it was just a perfect match, that the wine would go with the Western ingredient and the sake would go with the Japanese ingredient like miso or with soya milk, with the same dish. Just one ingredient change, and one would win over the other. Michael, did you want to talk? Did you want to comment anything on this?
Because I think that's something that we get into the Taiwan Food Challenge at the very beginning. Is that so amazing that sushi and also French, just by different ingredient, and it will so affect on the outcome. So it's sort of like very exciting that what we can do to understand our culture, which is from myself, is from Taiwan food. So that's what make everything fire. I think it's after the Tokyo trip. Yes.
So let's maybe get into it. Sebastian, do you have a question so far, or shall we just keep going?
I think you can keep going. Maybe as an initial question, I would ask Michael and yourself, what were your initial expectations? I think the motivation we understood, but yes. Did you have some? Did you think that you would get somewhere that you had identified? Did you have some preconceived ideas about where you would get?
No, I think we always knew that Chinese food has a very high affinity with sake. We know that wine has a very deep roots, or can go far in Japanese cuisine. And we were really setting out to see how would wine and sake fare with a cuisine like Taiwanese, because you have, I think, the northern Chinese food, and Taiwanese is closer to the south. It's much more delicate. It's closer to Japanese cuisine. It's kind of in between Chinese and Japanese. So it was very interesting to see how this was. And we really wanted to go to find out for ourselves. I mean, we didn't out to actually to have a presentation on this now. We did not set out to do this. We wanted to know for ourselves, because we are both educators, Michael about sake and myself about sake glasses. So we want to know, because this is one of the questions that the consumers really want to ask. The consumers have choices. And of course you can have sake with pita, and of course you can have sake with curry, but is it the best match? Is it the best category of a drink to match with a specific food? And this is what we were looking for, to identify those categories, common flavor components that would put sake on top of other beverages, not just wine, but other beverages in general. And this is why we set out this food challenge.
All right, go for it.
All right.
Okay, Michael, just give me the sign when you want me to change the slide.
Yeah, sure. Okay, that's the Taiwan food pairing challenge. I think it's a crazy, wild 2 days that we had, because we're so into pairing and want to find out. And actually, we have 6 participants and joined this challenge. And what we have is like 60 dishes from 25 different stores, because some of them is like so special that they only have under 5 menus. So we just buy it and bring it to my restaurant and do all the tasting. And after like second day, the end of second day, we actually count how many movements that we have. And actually it's like 1,000 individual tasting flights that we have. So it's kind of
Wow.
very tough job that we have. And let me just quickly introduce the people who joined this tasting pairing. And me, myself, and also, I think we changed to the next page with the photo. Okay, that's me on the very left-hand side. And the second one will be Sean. He's a head sommelier of the Mandarin Hotel, Oriental. And the middle one is the Kevin, which is the first international team sommelier in Taiwan and second generation of the tea shop. And from the right-hand side, the second one will be Karen. The base, she mainly is in Shanghai, and she owns like 8 restaurants, which is all running very well. And she's a foodie as well. And very right-hand side will be Stephanie. She's a wine educator. So in Taiwan side, it's like we all have different profession. And in Taiwan side, only me, myself, is truly a lot of crazy sake lover. You will see that another 4 people are the more wine side. So it will be very interesting that we see what happened in the conclusion, not only the people who only love sake, but with all different professional and also foodie as well, and see what we find out. That's what we have in Taiwan team.
So here, this is the Japanese team, very small team that went to Taipei. Myself, being from the wine glass company and originally growing up with wine, of course, I was not defending wine, but I tried to be as objective as possible. And we teamed up with Ken Jeremizu, who is our hospitality and food pairing specialist, and he's kind of winner of a cooking competition. So he knows, he's our food pairing specialist. Whenever we do some food pairings, we call on him, and is very well versed for both sake and wine, because he's in Japan and he's Japanese. So I think it was a very interesting group of people to do the tasting.
Yes, and for the restaurant style that I choose will be definitely the food stall, because the food stall in Taiwan, excuse me, I'll grab some water.
Let's go maybe to the food stall.
Yeah, the food stall in Taiwan is very common, the most commonly eat out option. But the food stall is so small that they only have like under 10 menu. So if I'm selling noodle, maybe noodle with something topping all different. So we have to buy a lot of different food from the food store and bring it to my restaurant and do the tasting. But it's the most commonly that people's option when they are eating out, and a lot of variety of the choice. That's the first style that we choose. And the second one, we choose Haichan Dian. Haichan Dian is a pronunciation for Taiwan izakaya style. And here that the very fun thing is that the Haichan Dian, the izakaya in Taiwan, that we choose our own material that we want to cook, and then we choose the cooking method. So it's always fun to stand in front of the shop and then just use your finger and pointing, I want the crab, and then well, what can I do with it? They will ask you to steam, to stir fry. So it's a very common izakaya style in Taiwan. So that's we choose. The other style of the food is Haichan Dian. And the third slide here, the restaurant that we have is actually a very classic Taiwanese restaurant, and also got the 2-year Michelin star, and it's called Golden Formosa. And it will be interesting that this is actually 75 years old. They got the history of 75 years old. And the culture of the Taiwan banquet, it's actually from the Japanese Taiwan time period. So the people want to go to social and more drinking and about pairing the food. It's like the same menu, which from that period. And now the banquet style of Taiwan style all come from that period of the time. And this shop, that's we want to present that, how about this traditional style of banquet, how they go with the sake. That's why we choose this, this restaurant here. And the last style of the Taiwan restaurant that we choose are the specialists. Particularly on this restaurant here is that Taiwan beef specialist. Because Taiwan beef specialist is very famous in south of Taiwan. They are not as oily as Wagyu or American beef. They're always very fresh cut from the morning and then sent to a restaurant, and they definitely have to finish on the same day. So it's more like red meat style, but the specialists, they have many methods and different style of cooking. So it's kind of quite interesting to find out from the same material, different way of cooking from the pot to stir fry and to spice a lot that Taiwan people have, garlic, ginger, and to see how they perform. And of course, other than the Taiwan beef specialist shop restaurant, we also have a lot of like pork specialist, fish specialist, veg specialist. So that's a different style of the restaurant. So it's kind of fun to choose these 4 different kind of style. So that's why I'm trying to find out how they pair it with the sake and also wine as well. And because the special shop, we separate into 2. One is for the pot and different ingredient into the pot and see how they taste. And the other one is also the Taiwanese beef and all stir fry with hormone and every part of different meat. So it's kind of fun over here. And that's what we have in 2 days. It's crazy, but very exciting.
Yes.
Okay, because we
Did
all
everyone
got
make it?
No, I think the 2 ladies, I think the next day,
Yes.
I think they were not maybe mentally and physically prepared for what was coming, and they did not feel too well. So I think they stopped a little earlier. But the guys were more tough, so it we stayed until the end. We did it. It was kind of a marathon. It was really a food marathon. It's kind of like your Future Sake Summit I was watching yesterday, and I felt very sympathetic to your situation because you keep going nonstop. So it was the same thing for us.
We're all in this together.
Yeah, yeah, that was crazy. Yes, yes. And in here, I want to more spend a little bit more time on the cooking method, because the cooking method for me is that they really will change the outcome of the pairing. Sometimes we go to the restaurant, the material cannot be changed because that's what they deliver in the shop. But the way that we can change is like, okay, we have this sake, and what we're gonna do is changing the cooking method. I think it's very important. Like the same fish, we can have steam, we have braise, we can have deep fry, we can stir fry. It would definitely change the outcome in which sake we're gonna pair or which wine we're gonna pair. And for the cooking method that we analyze is that we have the normal steam, deep fry, and smoke, and braise, and a lot. I think it's a lot cooking method with the other over around the world is the same. But in particularly, what we find out is that the Taiwan food that we eat at home is actually quite similar style that what we have in Japan. We definitely have both rice or noodles, and we will have one of the soup, and we will have vegetable one dish, meat one dish, and to complete our dinner. But the most different thing that compared to Japan and Taiwan or the other country is we do a lot of stir fry. So the stir fry with fresh meat or fish with very strong garlic or ginger will be very unique in Taiwan style of the cooking method that we have. And of course, down to the wine and sake that we choose to do this 2-day marathon pairing. And for wine, actually, it's Sean chose the wine to pair. And from the very left-hand side, actually, the first day we use is Riesling with a very high acidity on the first day. And second will be the white wine as well, Bordeaux style, with more complexity, with more deepness. And the red wine, I think we'll want to have the Pinot Noir and the other one is from the US Cabernet and Sauvignon with more deep. So it's sort of like light taste of wine, deep taste of wine, and on the white, and also red as well. And for the sake that I choose, not by the brand, but mostly by the style. So I want something very common seed as the Junmai Daiginjo with a very fruity aroma, sweetness, of course, and also have some umami as well. And the other Junmai Daiginjo that I use is not that fruity aroma, not that sweet, with some complexity, maybe by the aging. But the aging is actually from the brewer, not by us. So it's like more complexity, less sugar resistance. And the other one will be typical Junmai Shu, which is the third one. Actually, it's been aging also in the brewery for at least 1.5 years to 2 years. So full of umami. We want to see how they're doing. And the very right-hand side will be the high acidity. And especially with Alamasa, you can feel the acidity also from the Kimoto and also umami as well. So we have the very clean, sweet with umami, the Ginjo style, and with less sugar content, with a little bit complexity, and also Junmai Shu, and something with acidity with the sake. That's why the sake style and wine style that we choose at the very first beginning.
Yes, and on the second day, or on the first day, actually, we, especially from the wine side, we had to go out and replace some wines because we found out that some of the wines, particularly the red wines, did not really do that well. We changed an Australian Riesling to a Mosel Riesling. We changed the Nero d'Avola from Italy to a Pinot Noir, and we threw out the Cabernet Sauvignon and replaced it with an Oak Chardonnay, because even after the first session, we figured out these wines did not score once on any way on a higher scale. So we eliminated them basically and tried to add new horses into the race, so to speak. And the same, I think, happened. Only one, the sake as a category, I think Honjozo was not doing all too well with most of the dishes. Maybe Michael, maybe you want to add something to the Honjozo?
Yeah, because most of the time before we do the tasting I thought Honjozo will go very well with Taiwan food because light and then we eat fast, but they didn't come out really good on the first day result. All the spice on the food is so pump up, and the sake become very bitter. That's why we do the change to Junmai style of the sake on the middle of the first day. So that's why we have a little bit change on the sake.
Okay.
Yes. All good, Sebastian? Okay.
Yes, absolutely.
Okay.
Suspense is building.
Okay. The results. So here we go. I will start with the wines, and then Michael will talk about the sakes. So we have the first wine. 1 out of 60 dishes was the best matched with Pinot Noir. With the Pinot Noir, the red fruit flavor of this Pinot Noir from Chile was really good, really going very well with the frozen tofu and the thick chili hot paste. So this is a Pinot Noir. The fruit, it was really number one, but it was the only Pinot Noir and was the only red wine. So this was the biggest shock for me personally, because going to Taiwan and tasting beef and stir-fried and with fat and lots of flavor intensity, I was hoping or was expecting the red wines doing a lot better, but unfortunately this was the biggest surprise for me, that the red wines in general as a category was very hard to beat sake, very, very hard to beat sake. The one that did stand up, the only wine that stood up to the sakes was the Riesling, and not the Australian Riesling. The Australian Riesling on the first day was far too sharp. It was very dry. It was a drier style, and the acidity was just too sharp and too overpowering for most dishes, which is very delicate Taiwanese dishes. But once we choose the Mosel, which has a higher residual sugar, so it balanced beautifully the acidity of the wine itself as a beverage, and also it has a lower alcohol. And those two components I thought was extremely, as a finding for us, really enlightening, that lower alcohol and balanced acidity in the wine was really a great match with 7 out of the 60 dishes. So you have different. Michael, is there anything you want to add to those?
Yeah, the Mosel is actually very surprising for me. I realized that the sweetness from the wine and also acidity, if they balance, it's actually go very well with Taiwan food here. And that's the most surprisingly. And also the red wine actually do very poorly, which is also very surprised as well. I saw there's kind of some of the meat dish will go pairing with quite well with the red wine, but it didn't. So, but of course we have the strong components of the sake. So yeah.
And this is the Junmai, Michael.
Yes. And this is actually the Junmai Kimoto, which have the very indicate on the acidity and also umami and some of the complexity at the end of the sake. And actually won 8 out of 60 dishes. And I find out it's quite interesting that this kind of style with the lactic acid, very strong, not strong, very obvious lactic acid, actually can go with something extreme Taiwan food, like the deep fried things, and also some stir fry with the garlic, and even something really spicy. They use a lot of chili dish, actually will go well with that sweet and also acidity, lactic acidity. Maybe this is, let me remind something like what happened with Mosel. You know, we got the sweetness and also balanced acidity, and also happening in this sake here. So I think if we have something like high acidity and also umami as well, maybe we can go with something spicy food, something more spice from the garlic, ginger, and also deep fried thing. I think will go very well. And for the claim, the shellfish, of course, will go well on the sake because of succinic acid. Also, the coenzyme, they pair very well from the food and also sake as well. And the next one, we will go on the big winner on this event.
Yes.
Yes.
This was for me a big shock. I only saw the data and I thought this could not be possible. But Michael,
yeah,
please.
That's true. I also saw this one probably will do like maybe 30% of this will go well, not like 35. It's kind of crazy because most of the market that we have in Taiwan, the Junmai Ginjo or Junmai Dai Ginjo, tend to go a little bit sweet. But at the first, very beginning, I was kind of scared that is that sake gonna be too sweet for the food when they are pairing? But after all the flight that we have, actually did very well, especially with something with the meat sauce, meaty juice, and also with something marinade as well, and goes through very well. And then I started wondering, how come this dish go very well with the Junmai Daiginjo with this kind of style? And the result is like back to the standard cooking method that we have in Taiwan. And most of them, what are they from? When we are thinking about that point, it's like the first thing is that we use a lot of stock and mainly from the pork. So the food store that we have, we win a lot. The soup base all from the pork bone itself. So we have a good stock from the beginning. And then the second priority that for the Taiwan food style is like sweet. So if the food store cannot afford I mean, because the food store that we go to buy sometimes can go very cheap. Like maybe I get a soup and one dish, and with bowl of rice, maybe I only spend maybe 200 Japanese yen to 300 Japanese yen. Of course, they cannot afford 200. It's very cheap. So it's very surprising that we can use this price to buy our meal. But of course, they cannot afford to do a lot of good stock. Maybe some sugar is adding into our ingredient, and also stir fry. Adding sugar is kind of the old time that we add sugar in to make the food more tasty. But now, of course, because the healthy part, they changed to from the natural ingredient. But still, adding sugar to dish is quite normally happen in Taiwan. But not that sweet, but a little bit of sweetness. And also in Taiwan way of cooking with marinade, fermentation food as one of the ingredient that will involve to one of the dish actually is a key point. So I start wondering that, okay, we have the stock of the umami and also sugar, sweetness a little bit, and also marinade fermentation food with all different layer of the food. Yeah, it actually will go well with something a little bit sweet, and especially with the umami sake. And I realized, yes, that's why in Taiwan market, not because only the Junmai Daiginjo or Junmai Ginjo is the high class rank of the sake, because it's also go well with Taiwan food. That's why the demand of the sake with a high rank is growing, increasing every year. So it kind of makes sense at the end of the day that they do well with most of the Taiwan food. Yes.
Okay.
So this is the summary, the overview. We had Junmai, basically almost 60% of the 60 dishes. The winner was Junmai. 13% Junmai Daginjo, sorry. 13% Junmai. The wine was 13%, the one Pinot Noir and the Riesling. And there was 15% draw. And actually, I just realized while doing this, we have not analyzed the draw situation. So we will add this on for another day, where we want to see what is the times that both sake and wine scored really well, and when did they both not score very well. And maybe the next slides a bit further down will give us some insight into this. But let's maybe just cover the general findings that we had. Is like, as mentioned before, the wine, for the wine itself, the acidity and the residual sugar balance is absolutely crucial. Any wine that did not have some form of sweetness there was very hard to pair and to win. Tannins need to be very, very soft in wine, if necessary at all. I mean, the conclusion was almost like what Taiwanese food does not need tannins, almost, to cut through. I mean, of course, it's a general statement, but in general, most Taiwanese dishes would not do very well with tannins. And that low alcohol also might be a plus. That the sharpness of the acidity and the high alcohol, I just checked the alcohol levels of most of the wines. Some of them were 13, 14 degrees for the Cabernet. Very high alcohol, and the one that did well was the one with lower alcohol. So acidity balanced by sweetness, and alcohol, low alcohol would be a plus.
And you say that about wine, but not about
yes.
Sake, that's right?
No, not about sake. So I just talk about wine. I let Michael speak about the sake part.
Yeah. The sake part, I think the sweetness is needed as a conclusion. Actually, that will match the food. That you don't feel very strange that once with food and also sake as well with too much different taste. So it's sort of starting, maybe when they combine, is at the same balance line. It's really important that we feel comfortable, and also the umami from the Junmai style will lead us through to the end of the palate. And also we find out that the umami and the sweetness is the key. That's why we explained on the method of the most of the Taiwan cooking, most of them, not all of them. And also, I think this part that be aware of vinegar is quite interesting that we find out, me and Wolfgang find out. So I think, should we talk the vinegar later or
later?
This page?
Let's go with the pickles.
Okay. Yeah. And the structure. And the structure layer, I think the other thing that I find out that not simple sake, not, of course, the sake is delicate, with a little bit layer on the umami, or which is from the amino acid or umami as well, or different layer of the acidity actually will go well with the food. So we don't want something that very sharp and simple, just punch it. I think the food will go, oh, too strong. But with something with a layer, more softened, and they present pretty well. That's what we find out, and general finding of the result. Yes.
This is something that was very interesting because Michael a few weeks ago sent me a picture of a 7-Eleven store of the tea section in the 7-Eleven store in Taipei, and asked me to, why don't we do the same in Japan and see how it differs. And this is most fascinating, that the sugar-free tea selection in Japan is almost double the one in Taipei, which means that in Taipei, people sweeten even green tea, and in Japan, a lot of the teas are unsweetened. And this is probably one of the main characteristics, the differences between the two cuisines, that Taiwanese cuisine, if you look at Taiwanese cuisine as being very light, being umami driven, but have some sweet component with it. Japanese would be light and umami, but have some more salt component. So this is what was really interesting to see, and you can actually see this when you look at the convenience store selection.
Yes, definitely. I think it's very interesting to see how the market go in Taiwan. Like maybe 10 years ago in Taiwan, we have less sugar-free tea. So a lot more. Now it's already increasing in these 10 years. So what happened is that the people at that time, even more sweeter. So I think it will relate to the people that want to explore the sake in the future. Maybe I think the tea of the with sugar-free will increase in the future in Taiwan. So probably we'll have different outcome with what the sake we're gonna pair, but that's the style that the daily life, what we drink is a little bit more sweet compared to Japan. And yeah, it's very interesting, yes.
So which means when the Taiwanese dishes also maybe get less sweet, different types of sakes and wines will also have different application, I guess, in the future. Or the sweetness level of sake might be a consideration for some brewers.
Yeah, that's true. Yes.
Okay, I think we have to rush because we have 2 slides left, which are more the further level of analysis.
You've got the time. Don't worry, you've got the time.
Because this is the elements when we were asked, and you kindly asked, Justin and Sebastian, you asked us which are the common denominators of the base ingredients or the base flavor components of the different dishes, and we identified those 2 in general. That would, I mean, fishy flavors, that's nothing new. That also for Japanese, goes for Japanese food. But in umami, this is actually not so dramatic, but it confirms that also in Taiwan, those dishes that had more fishy flavors and had umami, light umami, were paired really well with the sake.
Yep, that's true. Yes.
And this is the interesting page, because these are the elements that we thought was not so well with sake in general. And it's those dishes that were low in umami. It was those dishes that had some bitterness, like this kind of bitter melon. And going back to the vinegar, it was the pickled cabbage, because this vinegar, this beef was stir-fried with pickled cabbage, which I think was using a wine vinegar or a rice vinegar.
Yeah, that's the wine vinegar, yes.
Yes, so those kind of pure high acidity, high acid vinegars would be very hard to match with most sakes. And also the wines did not do so well, but they probably did a bit better than the sake.
Yes. Yeah, that's true. Yeah, because when we talk about the vinegar style, I think we also, me and Wolfgang, we discussed break down into different separate things. It's like wine vinegar, and the Oriental use of white vinegar is very sharp. But when it changed to something like balsamic vinegar, red vinegar, or even the commonly used in Taiwan is a black vinegar, which also contained a lot of vegetable as well. So it got more layer on the acidity. Actually will do well on the pairing. So that's what happened with something we have to be aware of vinegar is that what we try to mention and try to express ourselves. Yes.
Okay. Yes, that's it. I think we just wanted to, of course, say that of course this experiment was not scientific. We cannot take any claim, and the same experience may be very different with different sakes and so forth. So and it's of course very subjective, being just human. So the result is never 100%. But I think it was very interesting to see the differences. One thing I wanted to mention is perhaps the menu. How does it fit within a meal design, a course menu design? Because if we remember, if you're anyone familiar with the Pepsi challenge, you know, when Pepsi challenged Coke on the street to taste test, and most people prefer Pepsi, just a single sip, but they preferred the Coke when they're drinking the whole can. So in the sense that would have been interesting to see this exercise within a whole meal, to have the same meal with sake and to have the same meal with different wines, and to see how this would affect us. And I'm sure there is some effect of throughout the meal, because the sake has this kind of soothing, calming element to it. And wine, because of the acidity, has a stimulating element to it. So I was thinking, of course, the greatest thing is to have both. And the other day, I did a tasting where we had sake and wines throughout the meal, and it was a fantastic exercise. And I think that's in the future, especially for foreign sommeliers and foreign restaurants, is to use sake as this kind of dynamic tool within the menu course design to really build excitement and a new expression of taste, and to expand people's palates around the world.
Well, thank you very much for that content. As you could see, I mean, just because of sake and food, Justin grew taller.
Yeah, Justin transformed.
So I'm very glad to welcome you this afternoon.
Yeah, that was really interesting though. I just caught the last part of that, but it's so interesting. I think Wolfgang's point about, you know, sake becoming integrated into the whole experience as opposed to replacing wine with sake, or, you know, I think actually for sake to just become part of the pairing menu is the best way forward to go about that. Also, the thing that you mentioned about the cooking methods being different in Taiwan, and how the sake paired differently depending on what the cooking methods were. So steaming, fried.
Yes.
You know, that reminds me a lot of Japanese kaiseki and how sake pairing was built into the kaiseki course as well. It's very much designed around those different cooking methods.
I have two questions. One question for Wolfgang, one question maybe for the two of you. The first one is, do you think there was an influence from the serviceware? What did you use, and could this have influenced the result? That's the first question. And my second question is, what will you do with that data? What are the next steps that you are envisaging? How do you want to use that going forward?
I mean, let me answer the first question. The sake was served at the perfect temperature. We did not do kan sake, we did not do heat sake. It was all based on less than room temperature. And of course, you may imagine that we brought the best vessels. I mean, we brought some the perfect vessels for each specific variety from sake and wine. And we had, of course, also some more choco there, just to, as a reference point. We had some kiki choco and some normal choco, so people could test. I think we in this sense, were able to give, I think, each beverage, each category, its best possible chance to shine with the meal. That was the aim, and this is why Riedel was interested in also as a company. We're interested to show this and to investigate this because we know that the impression of the food will also change if you change the temperature or the glass shape. So it's very, very important for us. The second question, I think, is easier for Michael to answer.
Okay, the second one, I think in the future, we definitely this time a lot of flight that we do is, I think, only open a little window that we know what's going on with pairing and different style of the food. I think in the future, we're gonna do even more, like what we will mention, like different style of the wine or the total different style of the sake. We redo it again in Taiwan to let the people understand that maybe we can go and try it out. So the main purpose that we want to know by ourselves and also present to the people all around the world and also the people in Taiwan that sake can do that. Maybe you give it a try. Everything is possible. Also the possibility that we can use with wine or sake, we just give it a try. Not with like the thought that we have, it must go well, it must go well. Maybe the result will be different. So it's very interesting to make the beverage become more fun, like cross culture. I think that's the main thing that we want to do more in the future, and to see what we find out more and to share with all the people that we find out.
Yes.
Yes.
I would actually, if I would choose a wine next time, put it into the race, I would use a Pinot Grigio. I would use Gewürztraminer, the traditional Asian food style wines. I would even experiment with Madeira or Port to see how it goes. And if we, maybe this is our next, I think what we want to do is with Michael to go to Northern China, because Northern China, I'm really excited to see how Junmai will do, because I would expect Junmai to do a lot better in Northern China. And also wine will do better. I'm absolutely sure that you have more fat and more richer proteins involved. So that this would be an exciting thing for the future to look at.
Yeah.
Excellent. I mean, thank you very much for doing the job, for sending us the result or delivering the results to us. It's really, for me, it was really inspiring to discuss these with you, and congratulations for all the efforts that you've put into it. That's really impressive. And I mean, and thank you so much for being with us this afternoon and having prepared these great visuals, which I find are highly convincing. I mean, I guess this particular session as well will be a strong reference point in our archive about food and sake pairing, food and wine pairing. So gentlemen, we're going to leave you there. And I am looking forward to the next opportunity where we can dine together. Around, anytime.
You choose the restaurant next time, Sebastian, again. We were very happy with your choice of restaurant, because you introduced us to the French couple place, which was fantastic.
Yeah, that was great. Yes.
Thank you so much.
Thank you.
Goodbye.
Bye-bye.
Thank you. Bye bye. Thank you.
Bye-bye.
Thank you very much.
Bye.
Thank you.